Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein here, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Thursday's edition, and we're broadcasting from spectacularly beautiful Delray Beach, Florida, and with my compadre, my friend Jeffrey, broadcasting from Long Island, New York. Happy to have you with us today.
Good to be here because it's raining outside.
Well, it's not doing that down here. It's 80 and sunny here in Delray Beach today.
Oh, I wish.
And that's why everybody's moving here to Palm Beach County besides the low tax. Jeffrey, you had some pretty good predictions last week, but before we get to your predictions, what is your thoughts on this story that was late breaking today? You know, Alec Baldwin charged with involuntary manslaughter. I mean, we had some political topics to talk about, but what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not a lawyer or a doctor, and I've heard both opinions from lawyers. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Alec. To me, Alec Baldwin did one good scene in one movie, and that's it. But what I've been told from friends who are professional actors is that anytime you get a gun, even though it's been checked by 5 other people, when it's in your hand, before you do anything, you open it and make sure it's empty. And if he did that, the lady would be alive now.
Yeah.
So, from a acting professional point of view, he was wrong. Whether it should be something that he's sent to jail for. I mean, he could be sent to jail for 5 years. I mean, the guy has 7 children.
Yeah, it does seem like that's the appropriate involuntary manslaughter. He clearly didn't intend to kill this person, but there are statutes on the books that deal with this. I don't know. I mean, it does appear, again, I'm not close to the case, but it does appear to be appropriate based upon everything, quote, I've seen, in the media about the story. So I don't know. I think we got to sort of let it play out, see what it is. You don't want to accuse anyone of guilty just because they're charged. But it's been a ways since this happened. And I guess it took, would have been a grand jury or prosecutor to come up with these charges, Jeffrey?
Actually, the medical examiner just came out with his or her report in November.
Mm-hmm.
So that delayed it a lot too.
Okay. All right. Well, again,
and the autopsy reports called it an accident. So I don't know if they're going to use that for their defense because it said it was an accident. They can't prosecute somebody for an accident.
Well, that's what the statutory is for involuntary manslaughter. If someone was killed, it wasn't voluntary. They didn't do it on purpose. Someone was responsible for that woman's death. And, we'll see how it plays itself out. Let's get back on politics here for a minute. Look, am I missing something here, or does it appear that the President Biden, is just clueless relative to what's going on this document scandal?
I think he's just saying what he's told to say.
By the lawyers.
But you notice that every time someone mentions it, they can't mention it without saying Donald Trump.
Right. I have noticed that. Yes, I have.
And it's different. It's totally different situation. Trump was president. When you're president, you can make anything you want non-classified. Biden was vice president. Obama could have done it, but he can't. It's all messed up, okay? Because in the history of politics, this has probably been done 1,000 times. Look at Hillary Clinton, for God's sake.
Jeffrey, I don't know if you caught my show on Tuesday, but I used the following analogy. In a football game, when someone is charged with a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty, and then somebody from the other team hops in, and it's a big brawl, and the official always goes, unsportsmanlike penalty number 88, the Giants. Unsportsmanlike penalty number 74 of the Eagles. Penalties offset, first down. I mean, I sort of feel like that's what we're in right now.
By the way, actually what they accuse him of doing is playing hockey.
We'll get to that later.
but exactly right. And the fact that they caught Biden, they can't prosecute Trump anymore.
They can't prosecute. They're not going to prosecute either one of them. You and I know that. I mean, they've called special prosecutors on both of them. Jeffrey, in my lifetime and yours, we've seen a lot of presidential scandals. And I said this the other day, too. Honestly, this ranks near the bottom on both of them. The only difference I see is that, they called the FBI SWAT team in. They made a big example of Trump. They didn't do that on Biden. But when you got through the initial piece, pretty much the rest of it played out, as you would expect. Nothing really came of it. I don't think anything's going to come of this on Biden.
Well, you look at it. Go back to Bubba, okay? He shouldn't have been impeached for having an affair.
No,
my opinion. Okay,
Agreed.
His wife should have killed him, but he shouldn't have been impeached. But he did lose 1 million emails that they wanted to see. That he could have been prosecuted or at least investigated for. They don't do that. I mean, the only president I can think back who deserved what he got was Nixon.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the definition, high crimes and misdemeanors, this is about as misdemeanor as you can. To me, Biden's documents are 6 years old. Trump was president. To me, and how many documents get classified, Jeffrey? I mean, millions. And this is a handful of, I know the Republicans are making hay of it because of Trump. And as we're going to talk about in a little bit, it has affected Biden's approval. But honest to God, do you really think this level rises to that level of importance?
No, but his big mistake is letting it drip out.
Yes.
Because when you let it drip out, it's worse than if you pull off the Band-Aid all at once.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you 100% on that. Let me shift over to Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. You had an interesting article in LidBlog, and I want you to talk about it. Putin does seem somewhat withdrawn, okay? Discuss the ramifications. The U.S. is sending more weapons to Ukraine, as is NATO, more advanced. But where's Putin in all this, Jeffrey?
This is the second report I've got in a month that the medicines Putin is taking for his supposed cancer is affecting his thinking. Okay. He is slow. Sometimes he seems like he has a little dementia. And, when I think that the military and the oligarchs who really run the government are really worried about him, and they're really keeping an eye on him. In fact, and I think I said this once before, he keeps bringing up nuclear. The military and the oligarchs will not let him touch the bomb.
I don't think so either.
Because they don't want to start a world war. So, but I mean, the last thing I read was really from a Russian source. And they say he's not going to live much longer. So at the same time, the Russian army isn't going to let Ukraine win, or doesn't want to let Ukraine win, because it makes them look bad. I mean, they're not going to use any super weapons, but he wants to make the draft if you drafted it to be longer. So instead of 1 year, maybe it would be 2 years. And he wants to call up more people in the draft, more citizens. And there are protests going on. We don't cover it, but there are real protests going on in Moscow. It'd be interesting to see what happens if he increases the conscription. Okay. He's losing his grip.
Well, the Russians, if you believe the reports coming out of Ukraine, have lost in the ballpark of 120,000 soldiers. And normally the injured list is double that. So,
right,
Jeffrey, that's, 360,000 dead or wounded.
They were told initially that they were going there for a test. They weren't going there to go to war. It was an exercise. So not only were they fooled, and I'm not even thinking of them. I'm thinking about their mothers and fathers, because these are young guys. Okay. And they're the ones that do the work. It doesn't matter where you vote in Russia, but they're the ones getting angry.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that type of death and destruction going on, to what end? Offensives are being planned for the spring. The Russians supposedly are looking to add in 500,000 conscripts into the fight. But the Ukrainians, with the weapons that they're getting, the drone technology, fighting on their own turf.
And the other thing is that when you are fighting for your own country, you fight harder than if you're fighting to take over someone's country.
Sure. No question. All right. Well, we're going to keep an eye on what's happening in Ukraine too. But your point on Putin, I've been hearing this for a while now. No substantiated reports other than that he does have some type of cancer. I don't know much beyond that.
Some people say he also has Parkinson's.
I haven't seen any evidence of that.
I haven't seen any real evidence of either one, but just reports from Ukraine and Russians and our own intelligence.
Yeah, I believe our own intelligence. All right, let me shift away from Putin and what's happening in Ukraine. Let's talk a little bit about the culture wars going on in this country. Oh my God. Jeffrey, no aloha, hola, shalom. What the hell is going on here?
Well, it's the woke people. Look, shalom I'm very familiar with. Okay. And I've never been insulted if someone said shalom. And I've never known anyone to be insulted. Okay. If someone said shalom. Hola. People don't get insulted. My Hispanic friends never get insulted. But what they do get mad at is the woke stuff like Latinx.
Oh, yeah.
That the woke people make up because they hate it.
Right.
Okay. Because they think it demasculates the males.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they really cared, they'll get rid of that.
Well, in some places they banned it.
As far
aloha?
as
What the hell's wrong with aloha? It's been said for generations.
Well, what they don't like is the people in hotels, that when they're announcing stuff and they're going almost like the guy who does the boxing announcements, they go, aloha. They hate that. Why? But normal hi, aloha, fine.
I just got to laugh at it all. The National Hockey League last night, they had what they call Pride Night. It didn't go over so well. Again, if they're interested in driving their own fans away from the sport, keep doing stupid stuff like this. People are sick of this crap. They don't want to hear it anymore. And that's not being homophobic. It's not being nothing. People don't want to go to a hockey game and hear some guy say, well, tonight's Pride Night, and here's the Pride flag. They don't care.
They want to watch people play hockey and beat each other up.
Right. They don't give a shit about that other stuff. They really don't care. And it's just to the point where, again, these liberal, radical Democrats try to stuff this stuff down people, and they've had enough of it. Look, I was reading something, University of Southern California. They don't want to call a baseball field a field anymore. The word they used, I'd never even heard of it before, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But when it gets to a point where you can't say the word field, listen, all this stuff is backfiring.
I never use field. I call it a ballpark. But that's what I grew up calling it.
But you don't call it Wrigley Ballpark. You call it Wrigley Field.
Although, long time ago when the Mets were playing in Shea Stadium and their general manager was Grant, I used to call it Grant's Tomb.
Well, anyhow, that's absurd. To say we're not going to call a baseball field a field anymore, that's really insane.
Well, these are the same people that said math is racist. Now, I hate math, so you can call it whatever you want.
Right.
But, my son is a just graduated 2 years ago, cum laude, as a mathematician. So I got to be nice for that.
Yeah, you sure do.
It's math.
It's math. Well, speaking of math,
one plus one is two.
Let's get down to some mathematics, talking about the economy. Microsoft announcing they're going to let go 10,000 people. Again, another technology company announcing layoffs. And the crypto firm Genesis appears on the edge of bankruptcy. Genesis was a crypto lender. This whole crypto industry, again, some of the losses that have been taken and will continue to be taken are horrific. Jamie
Amazon dropped people. Didn't Google drop people too? There was one other tech company that did a lot of.
Whoa, there's been Salesforce.com. There's a lot of them.
Right. But the thing is that the tech companies are having a real, and that, look, NASDAQ was down 30% this year.
You're talking about within the last year. Most of that occurred in 2022 because it was up this year. But the market is sold off a little bit on concerns about recession, rightfully so. But, again, when firms like Genesis, who's a crypto lender, all these, this is literally a business built on a Ponzi scheme mentality. Jamie Dimon said it as much today on a CNBC interview from Davos, Switzerland. I mean, I agree with him. I mean, this is a house of cards. It's all crumbling down.
Every other investment you make, you get a piece of something. Stock, you get a piece of a company.
Bond, you get a piece of ground. Right. Real estate,
you get ground. Nothing.
Gold, you get a bond.
You get a pretty coin.
Yeah. No, it's bad, and it's going to get worse. And again, I said this before. I have no sympathy for these people that bought this crap and they're going to lose money. I could not care less. If you're so stupid and so gullible to buy this garbage, I'm talking now about the coins, okay, or lending money based upon coin. I mean, this is unbelievable. And yet there's suckers out there everywhere that did this, and some of them lost a lot of money. And people say, well, Mark, what about they say, Mark, what about the institutions that got involved? Hey, listen, Wall Street's really good at creating money machines, whether they're real or not. And this is another perfect example of the Wall Street, calculating a good way to fleece the public. And they did a damn good job on this one. Almost reminds me back to the mortgage scams that went on back, in the early 2000s. So again, this is just another example. And again, you can blame the firms, but I also blame regulators for allowing this stuff to happen. And more of it's, left to come, which leads me to this, Jeff. Okay, the debt ceiling talks, all the talking heads are starting to talk about them. The U.S. has reached its debt limit. Can't borrow more money. Well, that's not true. We may have technically reached a limit, but the Treasury has opportunities over the next 4 months, 5 months to resolve this issue. Congress ultimately has to resolve it. The Treasury has a lot of tools that they're backing. And bear in mind, 90% of the bills are going to be paid. So what's your thoughts on this, Jeffrey? I mean, the Republicans want budget cuts. The Democrats say, screw you. We're not going to do it.
The Democrats aren't even, the president isn't even willing to talk. Okay, he said, I won't talk about it.
Well, if he's not going to talk about it, then there's going to be a lot of political pressure. The question is, who blinks first?
I've seen a lot of these already. And you have too. No matter whose fault it is, they're going to blame the Republicans. Okay. And even when it's the Democrats' fault, they blame the Republicans.
The difference is this time you got a hardcore group of Republicans. They don't care. The reason they don't care, they come from safe districts. You're not going to shame them into voting, and it ain't going to happen. So, I mean, look, we got time to resolve this issue. Certainly do. It's not a crisis right now. It may become a crisis in May or June, but it's not right now. But they should begin the process of addressing this.
But let me ask you something. If they told you couldn't use your credit cards anymore because you've overborrowed that, and they're going to take away your house because you've overborrowed that, you going to borrow more money?
Well, but I would not, of course not. But your analogy is not correct. Your analogy is misleading. In this case, the charge card's already been rung up. Now you're deciding, well, it rang up, but we're not going to pay the bill. So let's be perfectly straightforward with our audience here. These charges have already been rung up by both parties. Okay, you can't blame Democrats, can't blame both. There's some liability on both sides.
Absolutely.
Okay? But these bills have been rung up. Now, you can, if you take the Republican side and say, fine, we've rung up, to increase the debts, and you just can't increase it ad nauseum, but they have been. So where do we face ourselves now? $31 trillion in debt. There's a lot of interest to pay on that debt on the national level. So, Jeffrey, there's going to be some negotiations here. I don't see Republicans blinking on this.
Well, I got two problems. Number one, who we have to borrow it from? Our good friend China.
What the hell difference does it make who you borrow it from?
Because they got us by the neck. Okay. The other thing is that I'm worried about the debt bomb, which is that it's not like you can't pay your bills, you can't even pay the interest.
We're not at that point yet.
But we're getting closer.
Well, right now, debt exceeds our GDP in this country. Debt's exceeding GDP by about 150% right now. We're well above the 100% threshold that most economists say governments can manage. We're well above that right now.
Well, I don't think they should close everything down. On the other hand, I think that the president should negotiate, because in government, you don't just say no. You come to a consensus.
Right.
And each side's got to give a little.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. The old strategy is not going to work. I mean, in the past, they tried to shame Republicans. I'm telling you, I sense this thing's going to go on a little while, and markets may get a little rattled. And at the end of the day, a solution will come up with some give on both sides. That's my prediction. We'll see how it plays.
This is one of the things that McCarthy had a promise to get his speakership.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did.
That and cookies and cream ice cream.
He did to give a lot, that's for sure. Hey, did you catch that story, Jeffrey, about that tree hugger in Atlanta? That he was basically guarding a forest. I guess in Atlanta they're trying to build. They have a police training center or something along those lines. And one of these tree huggers who was protecting forests, fired at the cops, had a gun and shot at them. Well, what do you do if you're a police officer and you shot at you return fire? They killed the guy. Yeah. And I'm sitting here saying, pardon me, here's a tree hugger that died for a tree. I mean, it's absurd.
Well, the entire green type thing, they're trying to kill the country for that. I don't know if you heard that Al Gore speech yesterday at the convention in Davos. Okay. It was crazy. And no one ever says, how much have you invested in green energy products? Okay, because he invested a lot. And the more we go toward that kind of business, the more money he's going to make.
Well, look, he's clearly aligned himself. He's done very well for himself post his vice presidency. He can do whatever he wants as a private citizen. I'm not going to comment on that. But I just think this, Jeffrey, for a guy, whoever this clown was in Atlanta, it's one thing to protest. I get that. But to take a gun and fire it at a cop as a sign of, and then what does he expect? The police are going to shoot back. So effectively, was it really worth it? This guy gave his life for a damn tree.
Well, it's obviously that the guy is nuttier than Porta Potty and the last day of a nut convention.
Yeah. There's other tree huggers that were with this guy. They've been protesting this thing in Atlanta for a long time, but I guess the rest of them weren't dumb enough to pull out a gun and shoot at a cop. I don't know, Jeffrey. You see these radicals wanting to do all kind of weird things. I don't know. It just, what has gotten into the psyche of people where they think a damn tree is so important that, they're willing to give their life for a tree.
Well, it's part of the woke culture.
Must be. It's a foreign concept to me. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, I got to tell you, when my dog was alive, I know what a tree was for,
Exactly.
But, they're not normal. But you know what? They were taught that since elementary school.
Let me tell you something. When you fly into Atlanta, I've flown into Atlanta hundreds, if not 1,000 times. Man, there's trees everywhere when you fly into that airport. That's at the South. I mean, there's a lot of trees in the South. Okay. I don't know what was so damn important about, the environmental that these crazies in Atlanta are trying to prevent, a police training station from being built. But to me, I don't know. It's just really weird. All right, let me close it out with this. Reuters Ipsos came out with Biden public approval poll on the president. And Reuters Ipsos is a respected polling outfit. They're pretty accurate. They've got him at 40% right now. He's down a couple points where he was before. He's near his all-time low, Jeffrey, of 39 points. And yet we have word that 80-year-old President Joe Biden is getting ready to announce he's running for re-election. You and I both know a majority of Democrats do not want him to run. What say you?
If he says he wants to run, he'll get the nomination. They're not, Clyburn yesterday said he's got my support. Well, and actually, he's the one that pushed him over the top last time.
Without Jim Clyburn, Joe Biden would not be president.
Yeah. Of course, it would be worse. It would be Bernie Sanders. So I don't know what would be worse.
Well, you think about it. Who would have won, Sanders or Trump? We'll never know. But, literally, Biden had come, when he ran last time, he came in like 5th in Iowa, 4th in New Hampshire. I may have that backwards. Got crushed in Nevada. He came to South Carolina. He hadn't even finished in the top 3 in any of the first 3 states. And if you remember, there was a lot of back and forth. Clyburn finally endorsed it, and he won South Carolina handily and went on to win the nomination. But
a lot of liberals I talk to say he's the best president we've ever had after 2 years.
Really?
Yeah. And what I basically say is, can I have some of what you're smoking? But
what do they base that on? Seriously.
Well, they say that look at the economy. Yeah.
Okay.
Look at it compared. You see, they look at it now. Like they say gas has gone down.
That factually is true.
Yes, but when you compare it to when he entered,
it's still higher than when he took office. But gas is not a problem.
It's almost twice as much still.
Yeah, gas is not a problem right now in this country. In 80% of the country, price of gasoline is not a problem.
I know, but what I'm saying is the way they're selling it, they're lying.
Right.
Look, inflation has gone down.
Still super high. It's still really high. Right.
Exactly. Now, you probably know this because I don't. Somebody said to me that the way they estimate inflation has changed a lot over the last 10 years.
The components periodically change. That's true. But the methodology hasn't changed significantly. Look, certain goods, certain things happen within the basket that makes up the consumer price index. That's actually true because things change.
Right.
But not the methodology. That hasn't changed. But look, let me go back to this. What are these liberals so happy about what Biden's accomplished? Afghanistan.
Well, the only thing they're happy about is he's not Trump.
Okay, I'll give them that. That's true. But I don't know. I can think of bills that got passed that really haven't had any effect so far.
You mean the overspending that helped get us in an inflationary period?
Well, that's purely responsible for Biden. Biden and his administration. Yeah, no question about it. Look, I know liberals like Biden. I get it, but I just can't. Is there no other Democrat out there that? Jeffrey, I've seen polls saying upwards of 60% of Democrats don't want him to run.
You know how many emails I get that call me a MAGA idiot, and I'm not supporting Trump.
No, you're not.
I think the biggest disaster America can have is a 2024 election that's Biden versus Trump.
Ooh, I think that's the only way Biden could win re-election, frankly, if he runs against Trump. If I were the Democrats, don't indict him. Don't do anything to him. Just let him be himself. I don't think he's going to be, again, I don't think he's going to be the Republican nominee, but right now, he would be. So, and frankly, there's only one Republican Joe Biden could beat, and that's Trump. So anyhow, I don't know. I get why these liberals, because
from the time we first met, okay, I've been saying I want DeSantis.
Well, you have, and I'd be perfectly happy with him. I'd be perfectly happy with Mike Pompeo.
Yep.
I would be perfectly happy with Glenn Youngkin. There's a handful of Republicans I'd be perfectly happy with. Speaking of DeSantis, one of his big political action committee is getting ready to throw a $3 million ad spend, for DeSantis, to promote him. He's in the driver's seat, Jeffrey. I mean, the state of Florida is humming. Taxes are low. 700 people a day are moving into the state. It's growing. He gets a lot of credit fighting back against the cultural left. And I know, but look, here where I'm living in Palm Beach County, for the first time in my lifetime, we have more Republicans on the county commission than we do Democrats. It's amazing.
Well, and also where you live, it's also called God's waiting room.
Well, that's an old line name. I'm not really. Yes, but again, you look just when you drive around and see the economic growth happening in the Tri-County region where I am, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. It's astonishing. Astonishing. Yep. I mean, I came here for approximately 40 years ago. This place compared to where it is astounding what is happening in South Florida.
The state is being run right.
The state is being run right. There's no question about it. It's being run right. And it's prospering. And, again, he fought the culture wars and he's winning. Economically, the state's winning. He just won by 20 points. I mean, look, there could be other Republicans run, but he's going to have a damn good shot in it. And again, I just look at. He
did something very wrong. I heard him say "Ola."
I can always count on you for that. All right, look, 30 seconds left. Where do we go from here, Jeffrey?
It's going to be a good football weekend.
Great football weekend.
Okay, yes. And it's going to be a crazy political week. Keep your eye on this fight over the debt ceiling, because that's that and Biden's papers, the classified documents. That's going to still be the top news all week long.
Well, the favorites in football this weekend, Kansas City favored by about 8.5 over Jacksonville. We sort of like the Chiefs a little bit there. The Philadelphia Eagles, 7.5 over the Giants. I think the Giants could keep it close. Wouldn't shock me to see them beat Philadelphia, frankly. San Francisco, Dallas. What a great game. San Francisco, we like them. They're about a 3.5 point favorite, over Dallas. And then in a marquee game, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Buffalo's about a 5-point pick. Well, everybody's saying Cincinnati's offensive line is decimated. Well, there 3 of them are out, and it's going to be problematic. But Buffalo makes a lot of turnovers. I think Cincinnati could cover that point spread. We'll see.
And my prediction is going to be the same as last week. The Jets won't lose, and spring training starts in 3 weeks.
Okay.
Somebody prove me wrong.
Someone prove you wrong. Well, we'll go out on a limb, and we'll pick Kansas City, San Francisco, Cincinnati, and the New York Giants to keep it close, possibly upset them. We'll play the tape next week and see how good we were.
You got it.
All right, Jeffrey, thanks for everything. As always, on a Thursday. I look forward to seeing you next week. Folks, we'll cut through the BS, we'll cut through the propaganda, and we'll tell you straight, which we try to do today, but don't listen to all this media garbage about Biden going down and this and that. He ain't going anywhere, and we're going to stay on top of it. But don't get influenced by the media, whether it's right wing, center, or left. He's president. He ain't going anywhere. This isn't going to derail him. But we do want you to enjoy the football weekend coming up because it will be spectacular. Be back on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. See you then. Thanks for viewing and listening today.